In this Webflow tutorial, I'll teach you how to create a basic navbar using the default Webflow Navbar component. So you can see in this example website, this is just a typical standard navbar component. If we go into the inspect and view mobile, you'll notice that the navbar is indeed responsive, and we can go ahead and make a hamburger menu and everything still works. You notice in this other example website, if I take a look at mobile, again, this site is built using the default Webflow Navbar component. Opening the menu will go into full screen. So there is small flexibilities, but this is by far not a custom solution. So I've actually made a tutorial in the past in YouTube. It's actually one of my most popular videos that has over 70,000 views. So thank you so much if you're one of those viewers. And this is talking about building a custom navbar without using the default Webflow Navbar component. So heading in Webflow, if we hit the add button right here, we can scroll down and we can see that the default navbar component is right here. So the first step of doing this is just adding this specific component to top of your page. So let's go ahead and drag this in, and I want to make sure that this is sitting just below the body or on top of all my elements. So you notice with the navbar, by default, if we expand that anatomy, it has a container. Then if we open the container, it has a bunch of predefined elements that Webflow already put there. So we have a brand right here. So this is just a link block where you can go ahead and place in an image. So that's how you make that image, which is typically your logo, go back to like your homepage. The next one is navigation. So this has a div block that has a bunch of link blocks or text links right here. And then the next one is the menu button right here, which is actually, if you look on the right-hand side, display none. So it's actually hidden. So these are very predefined components because a navbar is very common in websites. And you'll notice it's kind of misleading in the fact that this actually doesn't have a class, yet by default, it's set to display none. So that's why my custom tutorial really explains the great intricacies of how it's actually done, where Webflow kind of cut the learning curve, which is fine. So inside this menu button, you'll notice there's an icon right here, which is actually the hamburger menu. So the first thing we can do is select that navbar right here, head over to the settings right here, and I just want to quickly show you guys that there are a bunch of default settings in the navbar right here. You can see it says menu. We can either hide or show. We can change the type of the hamburger when you're on mobile and you open that menu to either drop down, over right, or over left. We can go ahead and change in the easing right here, which is pretty cool. And we can also change the duration of that animation. And we can also tick stuff like menu fills page height or disable scroll when the menu is open. You'll notice below this is a very important point. We can show when the hamburger menu appears. Right now, by default, it's set to tablet, but we can easily just toggle this to desktop. You'll notice now it shows the hamburger menu. This menu button right here, which was originally displayed as none, is now showing, and that icon is the hamburger menu. So if we go ahead and just preview the site and we hit the hamburger menu, you'll notice it does it for you automatic. Like, it's pretty cool. Like I said, it kind of speeds up the building of the navbar because it actually takes a while to build. One of the most complicated builds, actually. So Webflow kind of helps you out. But it's very important that you understand this premise. Otherwise, everything is foundation, CSS classes, and box model. So let's quickly just move this back to tablet, and let's quickly select that navbar. And we always want to give things a class. I'll go ahead and give this a class of navbar-2026, hit enter. And then inside there is a container which contains everything. Now I already have a class inside my Webflow project called container right here. And in this container, it has a margin of auto. So it's centered in the middle. And then it also has a width of 100%. So it's just going to stretch to the full width of the screen, but it's going to limit the max width to 1336 pixels. So this is very important. I think a lot of people skip over this, but if you want to be a serious Webflow developer, you really need to understand what I just said. And I've already made a tutorial in the past with box model and CSS classes, so definitely check out those. Otherwise, I'm assuming you know this premise. So don't be mistaken, because right now I do have a container, and in this default Webflow navbar, it does have a container as well, but there is no class. So let's go ahead and give this the exact same class of container. But typically what I do is I don't even like using a container. I like using a div, because a div actually has more functionalities and you're allowed to use Flexbox more efficiently. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add a div block, and I'm going to drag this just above my container, and I'll give this div block a class of container. And again, I already have that class, and I'm going to go ahead and give a combo class of navbar-new. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move everything in the default navbar container into this new container that I just created. So I'll drag the brand, I'll drag the navigation, and I'll also drag that menu button right here, and I'll delete this default container. And again, the reason why I did that is with this container, I can now hit flex, and I can go ahead and change the X to be space between. So I'm pushing the elements left and the right, basic box model stuff. Whereas previously, if I used the default Webflow container that was found in that navbar component, there's a glitch where it doesn't let you push it left to right. So these are just the small technical details that people don't understand. So once that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and select that brand and just add an image. And I'm gonna go ahead and choose an image, and I'll go ahead and just upload a logo. Let's say this one right here, builders. Again, it's very good to just add a class. I'll give it a class of logo new 2026, and I'll go ahead and give this a height of, let's say, 2 rem. Then go ahead and select my container and make sure that the flex is set to align into the middle, and then that's it. With the right hand side, we can go ahead and style our links. Maybe I want to add another link. Let's say I'll call it projects, and I'll add another one called testimonial. And we can go ahead and obviously hit the settings and link it to a specific page. So right here, we can go page, and we can select the page we want, but everything is looking good. So by default in desktop, it's usually really good. Sometimes if you have too many links and you move to the lowest of the responsiveness, it actually breaks the website. So make sure that everything is responsive. Otherwise, this is a pass. We can move on to the next step, which is going into tablet right here. And you'll notice it's now displaying that hamburger menu. If I go back to the settings right here and I change the menu icon to just start mobile landscape, sometimes we can get away with it. So in this specific case, it fits all my nav menu items right here. So I don't need to enable the hamburger menu, but if you have a very long list, you might want to enable the hamburger menu. So in this case, this is great. This is a pass. Let's move on to mobile landscape. And now with mobile landscape, if I move that menu to not show, this hamburger to not show in this specific mode and only in mobile, you'll notice that things start to stack and this is looking broken, right? Like it's not enough space essentially. So that's why I'm moving it to mobile landscape. And then from here, we can go ahead and open that menu button by hitting show, and everything's pretty much done pretty responsively. You know what I mean? We can just go in and, change the navigation. We can change the height to be 100% viewport height if you want to take full menu. And if you really want, we can change the drop down on the right hand side to be like, let's say over left right here. So then it puts it to the left. Like this is pretty cool stuff. Like this is just hitting some buttons and you don't even have to understand, like box model or absolute position. So this is pretty powerful stuff. And again, the limitation is there's only 3 different modes. Whereas if you do the custom option, you can do whatever you want. So perhaps I'll just leave it to drop down. And this is great. So maybe one thing we want to fix is the styling. So with the menu button selected, you'll notice on the right hand side, the menu is set to show. If I hit hide, it's hidden. But with show, I can go ahead and go back to the style and hit that menu button and give it a class of, let's say, hamburger, hit enter. You'll notice we have this green tag, which means this is the selected state. I go back to settings and I change it from menu show to hide. You'll notice if I go back to style and then click that hamburger again, that selected state is no longer there. So that's how we can style the 2 different modes. So again, with this specific hamburger selected, I can go ahead and change the background, let's just say to red. And then now if I go back to settings and I'll go ahead and put the menu to show, go back into style and then reselect this hamburger, you notice it's set to open state. And that's when I can just change the color from red to, let's just say, blue right here or black right here. Now, if I go back to the hamburger and hit settings and I'll just hide that and I'll preview the site, you'll notice the default state we set to red. If we click into it, it changes to black. So we can change the animations regarding the selected state. Everything else looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to mobile right here. And in mobile, in my case, everything is good. So maybe we'll go into the lowest breakpoint, which is 320 pixels. And maybe we don't want this right padding right here. So we can go ahead and style and we can change the padding on the right-hand side to be 0. So it's sitting flush on the right-hand side. And that's pretty much it. So if we go ahead and just preview this, open the menu, everything is pretty responsive. We can go ahead and add our hover states, etc. But that's essentially the custom navbar component in a nutshell. You'll notice we skipped through a lot of like basic premise stuff like box model and CSS classes and adding custom interactions. This is a fantastic way to get started. One last thing we can do, we can go ahead and select that navbar and we can go ahead and hit right click and hit create component. We can go ahead and give this a name, and I might give it a name of nav new 2026. And we hit create, and that way, because we made this component, we can go ahead and reuse this through different pages of your website. And when you make one change to a component, it would automatically change every single page. Another thing we can do is double clicking this component. We can also hit the style and scroll down and change the position. So we can change the position to either how it is default, or we can change it to sticky and then change the top positioning to 0 and put a high Z index so it appears in front. Let's just say 999, hit enter. And now you'll notice if I scroll down, it's staying at the very top. And we can also change the position to fixed as well. So I'll go ahead and make a tutorial in the future about positioning, but that is essentially the basic navbar. Hope you guys found this video super helpful. Please leave me a comment if you did. Otherwise, if you need any more help, leave a comment and I'll be sure to answer them. My name is Derek Su. See you guys in the next one. Peace.